The Curate's Egg, Ashraf Ali Thanvi, Part 1.
Not a single Deobandi that will not accept Maulana Thanvi's writings. Yes or no?
Welcome to this second series, following on from the work that Bletkin Rubishov channel did on the Tablighi Jamaat. So in this series, what I'm looking at is one of the pioneers, one of the leading scholars of the Tablighi Jamaat, and as you've seen from the clip at the beginning, the scholar that no right-thinking Deobandi would ever reject. And I've entitled this series The Curate's Egg because if you understand that English idiom, you'll find out that Ashraf Ali Thanvi is someone that does combine good qualities, but he has very many bad qualities. And this is not a subjective judgment, it's something that's can be seen, proven, and read in his works. So all I want to do in this first part is give you a clear overview of where I intend to take my material, and as always it will be accessible to anyone who wishes to look at the material for themselves. So my primary source and the thesis upon which I will conduct the whole series is this doctoral thesis submitted by an individual called Dr. Ali Altaf Mian. It's called Surviving Modernity, Ashraf Ali Thanvi, and the Making of Muslim Orthodoxy in Colonial India. And he actually mentions in the introduction to this thesis that he is critical of Ashraf Ali Thanvi, but he does have a fondness for him. I myself, I'm indifferent to Ashraf Ali Thanvi, but the more I read his literature, the more I have a suspicion of and dislike for the material and the information and the path of knowledge that he actually took. And through the course of this series, I'll show you my individual readings. So the first thing is, I'd like to read the abstract from this. All theses have an abstract which gives you a summary of basically what the thesis is about. So this particular abstract, it states that Ashraf Ali Thanvi was based in British India, and Orthodox theologians, him being one of those Orthodox theologians, survived colonial modernity by deploying sociological, discursive, psychic, and hermeneutical strategies. And Thanvi, in order to be able to do this, he published hundreds of original treatises, compiled texts, things known as malfudat, which are sermons that he delivered, covering all manner of doctrinal, ritual, mystical, communal identity, political theology. But there's another side to him. He had a lot of problems in regards to sexual relations, specifically in terms of, and I'm bulking to try and to actually say this, but specifically in terms of bestiality, paedophilia, pederasty, and the thesis will go through, the series will go through these individual points. So Ashraf Ali Thanvi, in his works, and that's how we judge the man, not subjectively, we judge him by what he's actually written, had many problems in terms of sexual misconduct or sexual mores, if we want to use that term. The work he produced is voluminous, and amongst the writings that he produced are on the screen now. I won't read through them, but he wrote about all manner of things: the laws, the faith, the foundations, and the branches, the subsidiary branches of knowledge. Furthermore, he wrote about things that certain Muslims would consider innovation. So for example, he wrote about the Milad, which is the celebration of the birthday of the Prophet. He wrote in Tafsir, which is Quranic exegesis, and he wrote in spiritual purification. Other individuals that I will look at in order to further give credence to my arguments are the thesis submitted by this professor called Brannon D. Ingram, and it's called Deobandis Abroad, Sufism, Ethics and Polemics in a Global Islamic Movement. That was a doctoral thesis submitted to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Another thesis that I will look at in detail would be the one submitted to King's College London, and this one was submitted in 1994. And the reason why I'm using this thesis is specifically because of the problematic relationship that Ashraf Ali Thanvi had with the pantheist Ibn Arabi. Pantheism is something that's not orthodox in standard Islamic discourse. Then we have this thesis called Hadith and Sufism in Damascus, Ibn Arabi, An-Nawawi and Ibn Taymiyyah, and the author of that is Afaf Wahbi. Furthermore, we have the thesis of a researcher, his name is Scott Allen Kugel, and he wrote a very well-known book called Homosexuality and Islam. So again, this homosexuality issue is essential to understand Deobandi thought. It's called In Search of the Centre, Authenticity, Reform and Critique in Early Modern Islamic Sainthood. This is a doctoral thesis submitted to Duke University, but the homosexuality book that he wrote was a separate research. Another book that I will be looking at as well is the book by Ushia Sanyal, and this was about an individual called Maulana Ahmed Reza Khan Barelvi, and it's called In the Path of the Prophet, the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama movement in British India, 1870 to 1921. Remember that Thanvi died in 1943, so there was some overlap in these two individuals, and as you will see through the course of this series, these two groups, the followers of Ahmed Reza Khan and the followers of Ashraf Ali Thanvi, are vehemently against one another, and they produce a lot of information excommunicating and criticizing their opponents. So then I have the work of Muhammad Qasim Zaman, in fact two works. One is called The Ulama in Contemporary Islam, Custodians of Change, and the other one is an excellent book, and an excellent series of books in fact, published by One World Publishing, called Ashraf Ali Thanvi, Islam in Modern South Asia. It's called the Makers of the Muslim World series. This is an excellent series. It's about 120 to 130 pages long. It can be read literally within a few hours, and it's very dense with information about Ashraf Ali Thanvi. I will also, in addition to these researches, be looking at the work specifically available to the British reading, English reading, Arabic reading and Urdu, Persian reading public of the works of Ashraf Ali Thanvi himself, including the hugely problematic work on the page at the moment called Peculiar Problems of Men and Women. In fact, I'm not going to quote that book, but if you want to see exactly how perverse this individual is, you should read this book. Anyway, that's the introduction. That's where I'm going to take this series. Stay tuned for many more videos.